first order system is having one pole. If you see in Laplace transform, and if you see the denominator is having one pole, but if you have a delayed system, the delayed system is having infinite poles. So we don't use the term delay, we use the term response. It takes some time to respond, but it takes some time for us to observe the response, but it's responding from the time equal to 0. Okay, regarding the question, how do we identify the model? The best way is to go from theoretical point of view. If you have any system, we have to model from the basics, like if you have a thermal system, you have to model the thermal part and you see what is the relation between each step. Like how we do cascade, first we see what is the input we are giving, and from the input, what is it affecting and what is the effect to that. Like that we have to go and see. For example, in the thermometer, the input we are giving is the temperature, and what we are seeing is the rise in level if we use the old analog system type of an thermometer. Yes. So the rise in liquid is what we are seeing is the difference in the volume, and so we have to come up with some mathematical model which explains the temperature related to the volume, and that will give us the more insight into the mathematical model. That's the best way of or correct way of approaching any unknown model. If you don't know the model, how we go is you just start from the input, what input you are giving, and what is the effect it is having, and what you have to find all mathematical relations between these two, and you will find out the answers.
Okay.
And also there are very good books on mathematical modeling for robots and other anything in general. There are very good mathematical modeling books. We have to study those.
Okay.
For students, I suggest.
Is it difficult to identify physically the order?
Physically, it is almost impossible to identify, because first of all, let us say the model with what we are doing is not the real. It is what we are doing is always an approximation. Whichever model you see, it is an approximation. We are not considering all the elements into the consideration. I mean, how do we say? Whichever model we have, it is an approximation. For example, any linear system you see, it is an approximation, because in the real life there is no linear system. All systems are non-linear systems. There is at least one problem is the saturation. It saturates with some kind of, so at some input it will saturate. And also we eliminate all the small inputs or small signals that may affect the model. For example, if you consider a DC motor, and we modeled yesterday, and we are saying the voltage we are applying and resistance and inductance, all those things are affecting. But in the real life, if you connect voltage, the motor itself gets hot, and also there is a possibility of some other external influence like inductance because of the other motors besides. These all have some kind of impact on the actual output, but we are all ignoring all the other effects as a good approximation, not as a good, it's not a good representation, but it's sufficient for our results.
Okay.
So all the models are, we have to understand they are only approximation. A good model is a good approximation.
Okay.
So if you can model let us say if there is a 10 order system and you are modeling with first order equations, I mean first order system, if you are modeling it, and if you get a good result, your model is better than someone who comes up with a 10th order system and he predicts something wrong. Your model is better than the other person's model, because you are the one who is giving better insight into the system.
Okay.
Identifying actual order of the system is not as important as coming up with the exact representation model of the model of the real object.
Yeah. Okay. So our model should imitate the real world system, right? The response.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Suresh.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good evening, all of you. If you have any questions, please ask me from previous classes. Please feel free to ask any questions. Let's try to solve it. So did any one of you try to simulate any of the mathematical models we have seen until yesterday? Did you get enough time to solve any of those differential equations through any simulating software?
So let me see the chat box. Anybody typed anything?
Okay.
Okay. I think if no questions from the participants, we'll proceed with the session.
Okay.
Suresh, you can proceed, Suresh.
Okay, so let's start with today's test session. Okay. Today, until yesterday, we have seen whatever you have already seen in your subjects. For example, like solving a differential equation or applying PID controllers or like seeing some how do you say that?
Animated kind of.
Yes, seeing results and observing all these things, I'm sure you have seen in your courses. So from today onwards, we're gonna enter into the parametric identification, parameter identification. This may be new to a lot of us because it is not part of the regular course, or let us say it's not as a formal. You would have done this, but you didn't have recognized that it is there is some methodology to apply this. Maybe you have done this, but you didn't see that it is a kind of method we have to apply this. Before going to there, let me discuss a little about what is parameter identification, or what are its advantages, and how do we need it. So before talking about the parameter identification, let us talk a little about the model, like how Kalyan started asking about the models. As I said, a good model is a good approximation of the real system. If you have a motor and if you identify its behavior with some mathematical equations, we call it as a good model, right? Similarly, it is applicable for all other systems which we see in the real life. For example, now the very famous one is the COVID curves which we are seeing. It is a prediction. Some are we can see the until now, for example, until 30th July, what is there we can see, and there are a lot of models which predicts the future. So how we are doing is they have some models and they believe that model is correct and they are predicting the results. So that is one example. And also there are a lot of other examples like some markets like share markets and other things, they try to predict all the times, and some succeed for some time, some succeed for longer time, and they have some models to do that. And also there are other models like solar system model, or what else you can say. That the weather pattern is also a big example of a model, a nonlinear system, actually chaotic system, which we have seen already. What is a chaotic system? Weather prediction is also a challenging one. It needs a good model to try to understand what's going to happen tomorrow. Is it going to rain or not? It depends on all the parameters available today, and it needs a very good model. Okay, that's about the model. And so let us talk. What are the advantages of parameter identification? Is if someone can tell me, please unmute yourself and please answer. Why do you think parameter identification is useful in a model? We have a model, and what is the advantage of identifying the parameters? Can anyone give some ideas, please?
To get the desired output.
I think parameters will change with respect to time, with respect to external influences like temperature and all. So it is required for us to time estimate the parameters so that we can predict the exact output, or we can know the influences on the output. Probably.
Yeah. Like how Sir is explaining, there are time varying parameters as well. So if you have some parameters today and you estimated it and you are applying into your prediction models, but tomorrow the parameters may change and you need to upgrade your system by updating these parameters. And there are some control systems which keep on updating its parameters online. They use the term online. Online means they keep updating their parameters. They are always identifying the parameters and they try to update in their model. So this is called online. The term online is used in respect to this one. So whenever you see online identification, it means it's continuously doing it. Okay. Yeah, let me give some advantages which I have seen in which I have observed. One is it takes, for example, let us say there is a power plant connected to a grid and it needs some maintenance like once in a like 6 months or once in 1 year. They maintain one generator and they can't switch off all the power. I mean the whole power station. They switch off one generator and they give maintenance and they switch it on and they connect the other generator. And during this maintenance, lot of managers try to upgrade their systems. For example, if they have old controllers, they want to remove the old controllers and they want to put the new controllers. And they can't switch off whenever they want because they have to take permissions from other authorities. To avoid taking permissions from other authorities, what they do is while they're switching off for maintenance, they change the controller and they switch it on. So you have like 1 hour or half an hour to install the controller. So you can't do any experiment on the real life. You go to the power plant, you can't switch off and switch on the generator like how we do in the lab to do some experiments. You have only half an hour and you have to connect it and it should work. So how we can do that is you have to do all the experiments in the lab with some simulation softwares. And how we simulate the real life conditions is with a good model and with good parameters. We have to give all parameters of that system so that we can understand that it is working from the go. So that's one example. Like when you have a system that you have very limited access to apply your control or apply your changes, you will use in laboratory in your own lab in simulating it. I know one professor who goes to lab only once in a month to conduct 1 or 2 experiments, and he publishes article. So what he does is all time in his computer, he simulates the stuff. He goes to the lab, he just does what he wants to do. He collects the data and he goes and publishes his articles. So there are people who use very good use of this parametric identifications. Okay, the other one is to be able to forecast. Whatever we are saying, like science is mostly about forecasting what's going to be in the future. If it is about the past, the science is not that interesting. The science helps us to understand the future. So, and this parameter identification lets us understand the future. And regarding now, we can see it right now, the pandemic where we are having about because of the coronavirus. The COVID cases are increasing daily, and if government wants to control, what they can do is, or what they are doing also is, they are seeing the prediction models, what's going to happen in the future. And what they can do is, they try to control some of the parameters. For example, they can put, like, instead of 14 days quarantine, if they put 15 days, what's going to happen? They can simulate it by changing these parameters, and they'll see what happens. If you see, they talk a lot about flattening the curve, and they say, let's have very less interaction with other humans, so that the human to human contact is less and we get a less spread. No one is saying that there won't be spread, there will be spread, but the curve will be more flattened, like the cases won't increase at a higher speed. How they are saying is, in the models, if you see that interaction from human to human is very little, the spread is very little. And with that, the exponential curve will be exponential, but with little slope. So those are prediction models which will be helpful for a lot of human lives and also for government to take decisions. This is one decision in government. The same way in business models, they have a lot of decisions making things they can use it. And how if it affects in combination with a good models. Let me give some examples how it works. Today's workshop is going to be more theoretical than practical. It is because we have to understand this concept, and we should appreciate it before we enter into that, so that we will be motivated to learn more. So I'm giving more examples so that we can have a good motivation. Whichever thing motivates us, we can put more interest into it. Let me give another one good example, like what happens when you have very good model and you have very good parameters. So there are some examples, like for example, we know Laplace. Laplace is a French mathematician. He presented a model to that time King Napoleon, and he said, I know how solar system works exactly, and this is the model he presented to him. Then but we have to understand the context. The context was, like, before this happened, the model which was very famous or which was very seen is the Newton's model. The Newton's model of gravitation is the Newton proposed it. The two bodies attract and they move at we know the Newton's laws of motions, right? With that, he proposed some models, and what he predicted is, if you have two bodies in space, they are stable system, they rotate properly, it's no problem. But if you put three bodies in solar system, let's say if there is only sun and the earth in the solar system, it is a stable system. But if you add moon or any other planet, the whole system becomes unstable. So in some time they are going to be hitting each other or going away from each other. Some kind of instability is going to happen if it is more than three bodies in a solar system. That was the prediction of Newton. But what Newton said, that we are not moving away or something. Newton said that God is using his abilities to keep us in orbit. So there was like God hypothesis. God was involved into the scientific system. But now, after many years, Laplace went to the Napoleon. He presented this, and he said Napoleon was, I don't know, he read it or some of his colleagues read it. I don't know who read it. he understood that model and he asked Laplace, what happened? What about the God? Where is he inside this model? The Laplace said, the God is not required for my hypothesis. Science itself can explain its movements. So what he did is he used the same concepts of Newton, but he gave a better model and he gave a better parameters to the model, and he identified that this solar system is stable because of all these considerations. Newton theory was good, but the model or the parameters what he was using is some kind of error he did, and Laplace came up with the better model. So if you see, that is the advantage of the science advances a lot if you are having a good models. And the next example is, if you have seen solar system, as we know, we have 8 planets now, and the Neptune is the furthermost planet, and its discovery was also very interesting. The mathematician who was observing all the planetary movements, he said the Uranus is rotating kind of weird. It should be some other planet, otherwise the movement cannot be explained. And he predicted that the position of Neptune should be somewhere in this region. And the same night or the next night, the person who was there are some observers who read his article, and they pointed the telescope at the exact position what the mathematician has said, and they found the Neptune. So in one day they found a planet which they were unable to find for I don't know how many centuries. So this is the advantages of prediction or having a good model. And why are we not talking about electrical engineering is because we use prediction every day and every moment. So we use more prediction than any other field, I guess. So we are not even discussing about it, like it's part of our culture using prediction. For example, we use multimeter and we measure voltage and we say what is current and what is other things, because we are keep predicting the things. We can't even touch voltage, we can't see, but we are still able to measure it through some other kind of, we measure something and we predict the voltage, right? So we are using prediction already. So this is a motivation for us to understand why we are going to the parametric identification. And another one very good example in control systems is, if we know parametric identification, let us see how we can apply for the control. Let us see example 16. This is the only example we are going to see today. The rest of the part will be mostly lecture. So if you see yesterday's model, this is the model we have obtained for the robotic arm. It was 0.23 divided by 9.3. I have simplified further and I just used 0.2 and 10 instead of having those 0.222 and 9.300 something. I have made a much simpler model for our purpose. Okay, what we are going to see is how we can apply control. So until now, what we are doing for controlling is we always take a feedback. That means you want to know what is the position of the robot so that you can give some signal to get to the desired position. So if you want to apply PID controller, what we do is we always take, for example, let me show you the previous yesterday's example how we controlled our model. This was yesterday's model. What we have done is we have a system. This is a robot. If you want to control this robot, we have this controller, but the controller needs two things. One is the reference where you want to go, and another is what is the actual position. And we are taking this and we call it as feedback. So we need feedback to control a system. Traditionally, that's what we do. But what happens if you have a very good model and also you have identified the parameters? Theoretically, it is possible. Practically, it is it's very impossible. But let us say theoretically, we are in a theoretical world. And if we see here, This controller, I will show how it works, but for now, no need to understand how it works. This controller is not using anything as a feedback. It doesn't have any feedback. It is like an open loop system. You see, we have an open loop system, yet we can say what position we want. Let us run the system and see. See, we want to go here and it reaches here, and we are sure that it will reach. Why? Because we know good model and we have exact knowledge of the parameters. And how do we use it? That is by applying inverse dynamics. So if you know the dynamics, if you apply inverse dynamics, the both will cancel and you will get as 1. So what does it mean? Like for example, Q by V is given by this model, right? So what is inverse of this? For this part, 1 by S is S. And for this part, it is S plus 10 divided by 2. If you multiply it by S times S plus 10 divided by 0.2, what we have? This term will cancel with the S term. This 0.2 cancel with the denominator. This S plus 10 will be cancelled with the numerator of S plus 10. And we get 1. Q by S divided by V by T is equal to 1. We are going to get that, right? So that's what we did here. This 180 by pi, we are putting its inverse. It is pi by 180. So we are cancelling this term. This is an integral. So what is the inverse of integral? We can say it is differentiation. So we are applying differentiation. And we have a model here. It says 1 divided by 5, 0.2 divided by S plus 10. So what is the inverse of this? Is this part. How are we getting? So S plus 10 means what? This numerator, let's consider as in the this denominator, we have put it up like numerator, and let's see what happens. S is differentiation plus 10, right? S and this numerator becomes the denominator. So S divided by denominator and 10 divided by the this. So maybe I'm not. Let me type. So what I'm saying is this is the actual system we have. And we want its inverse. So what do we need is okay. So this is inverse of our system. So further simplification, what we can say is this thing, right? So what we are doing here in this part is this. One is the S, we are considering S is 1 by S is integral, so S is differentiation. So differentiation divided by B. What is B? Let us go here and see. I'm using B is 0.2 and A is 10. So divided by B, and A by B is what we have 10 by 0.2. So we are doing this. So what we are implementing here is the inverse dynamics. So what is the advantage? If you know a system with applying inverse dynamics, you no need to put any sensor here. You can say I want this value and it will reaches it. So this is the example for how inverse dynamics can be applied in control systems if you know exact parameters. Yeah. If you have any doubts, please ask me.
I think you can proceed, Suresh.
Okay, let's proceed to the next part. So as I said, today it will be more theoretical parts. So let's go to the next part and see how we can identify the system. This is an example like what is the advantages in control systems. It is not always possible because we can't be sure that the parameters are constant like this 0.2 and 10. There will be always some error and we can't implement this model as such. It's not possible. But I know one article on exoskeletons. They have implemented one exoskeletons without any sensors, and what they did is instead of having negative feedback, they put on positive feedback. Let me show the previous model. PID controller is an example. If you see here, we have this feedback, and in control systems, the feedback is always negative. It is because it attenuates any disturbances we have. The disturbances is like it may be like any perturbations, like if the motor is rotating and if you manually change a little or the load has changed a little or something, it will try to reach its final goal because it's always having feedback and it's negative. It attenuates the perturbations or any errors or the noise of the sensor, everything it will be attenuating. But what some people has done, like they taken advantage of this, and instead of putting negative feedback, they used positive feedback. What they said is they have predicted the model at very high accuracy, and they were using this. They're using the motors and all the equipment with high quality one, so that there won't be any perturbations in their system itself. And whatever perturbations are coming from the human. For example, the exoskeleton is something like we can say like Iron Man suit. You have Iron Man suit, but if you want to move the arm, you have to tell the suit to move the arm, right? So how we do is generally we put some force sensors, force sensors. But these people they didn't put any sensor. What they did is if you move up, you are causing some perturbations to the system, and if you put negative feedback, it tries to eliminate it. But if you put it positive, it tries to amplify it, like an oscillator. Oscillator is having positive feedback. It oscillates because it's kind of it's something opposite to this system, right? So what they're doing is it amplifies the perturbations, and they are making sure that all the changes, all the disturbances caused to the system is only because of the human. So whenever the human is moving his arm, he's like making the system go unstable, and he moves up, and it's what the control system is in that model. What they're doing is it's trying to make the system more sensitive to the human touch, but it's not using any sensors. It's a good example, like without any sensors, you can control the whole exoskeleton. That's a part of DARPA program of United States called Bleek's exoskeleton. So if you see about this exoskeleton articles, if you see in Google Scholar, you can find some of the articles with positive feedback. Okay. So this is like application of parametric identification in the control systems. Now let us see how we can do it. For that, let us go step by step. I will go very slow today. From tomorrow onwards, we can make some models. But today I want you to understand the concept and to understand the procedure which we are going to follow. So let's start with the first part. Let's say parametric model. What is parametric model? If you have any system, I mean any differential equation, we can write in this form. These are matrices. Z, theta, and phi are matrices, and we can write in this form. What is this form is? If you take any differential equations, we have two types of terms. One term is multiplied with parameters and some terms are not multiplied with parameters. So what we are going to do here is separate the terms. This side, the Z is all the terms which doesn't contain any parameters. So Z is all the terms without parameters. And phi and theta star phi is all the parameters which contain some unknown parameters. And all the unknown parameters are, we are denoting them with theta star. So what we are doing is we have one differential equation. We are putting all the terms which we know one side, the terms which we don't know on the other side. So in a differential equations, you should know what is a signal and what is a parameter. The signal is something which it keeps changing. For example, in an electric circuit, the voltage and currents can be considered as signals, and the resistance, capacitance, and inductance can be considered as parameters. So for example, if you see example of a electrical system, if we write some equations, differential equations, and we put all the terms which we don't know on one side and all the terms we know on the other side. If you put that, we call it parametric model. It's very simple. Let us try to do how we can do for this model. We have seen this model yesterday, right? This is our robot model. Q is our robot arm position, and V is the voltage we are applying to the system. And similarly, the Q dot is velocity of the arm, and V is the voltage we are applying. If we see the model, it is B divided by S plus A, all times 1 by S. So we can say S square plus A times S. In the velocity, we differentiate this. So we remove an S here and we write the same thing, B divided by S plus A. So let us try to write parametric model for this system. So in this system, let us find out first what are the things we don't know. We know Q because we can measure it. The position of a arm, we can measure it. So we say we know it. The V is voltage. We are applying the voltage, so it's something we can measure it. So let us say Q and V are the terms we already know. These are signals as well. And what are the terms we don't know are B and A. So let me give an example. In yesterday's example, let me show this. If we see yesterday's example, we have this, right? We have this model, and let us say you have a robot arm in your lab, and you are sure that this model is good, but no one can say these values are correct for your lab robot as well, because these are something I made up. So you don't know these two, this value 0.2 and 9.3 for the model you have in your lab. So what you are going to do is, you say, I don't know those values, so I'll put B and A. So for the robot which we have seen yesterday, the B was 0.219 and the A was 9.3. Let us say we have another robot and we don't know what is the values of B and A. If we can know what is B and A, we can directly apply one beautiful controller and we can control it like how we want. We can simulate it and we can apply it. So what we're going to do, let us write the parametric model for this. So how we are going to write is, let us see for the equation 3, what we are going to do is we put, it's like a simplification, like moving the terms around, and we can write these differential equations. This is a differential equation. And in this differential equations, what we are doing is, this is the known term, or we can measure, we are putting one side. All the unknowns, we are putting the other side. So we don't know what is B times V, because we know we can measure B, the V, the voltage, but we can't measure this B, the parameter B. So we are putting it on the right side. And also the q dot, if you know the position, we can measure the velocity and acceleration. I will tell how we can measure it in the later sections. But for now, we can say that if you know the position, you can measure the velocity and acceleration. So we say we know q, but we don't know a. So what we are going to do, we are putting these two terms on the right side. So we have to write it in a matrix format. So how do we write the q? We are putting, this is the matrix format we want. The z is q double dot, or the acceleration, and these two terms, how I am writing is, so if you know the matrix multiplication, so this we can write like, let me show here. So this is how we can write this is, this is equal to, say, the matrix b times so this is equal to this. If you can see the matrix multiplication, it's not, see. So if you can identify, this is equal to this. So what we are doing here is, we are writing the unknown parameters are in this matrix, all the known or measurable signals or parameters, whatever we say, is in this matrix. So we are separating all the unknown into one matrix, all the known into another matrix. So we are writing here. So this is BA. We are putting transpose because I don't want to use longer space. So putting transpose, we write this. And the phi is the ones which we can measure. I'm writing in this way. I'm using U and Y because for now we know that Q is robot arm position and V is the voltage. But later on, when we see more theoretical part, we see we don't use Q and V. We mostly use the control system notation, which is Y we use for output, X U for input, and X for the states. So you for that terminology, to get more into that terminology, instead of Q you can use Y, instead of U you can, instead of V the voltage, let us use the U. So this is the parametric model for the robotic arm. If you have any doubt until here, please ask me. Okay, so let's go to the next example. I mean the same example, next part. This another model is, this was for position, this is for the velocity. So if you see the model is similar, so the calculations are similar, and we are putting all the known ones one side, unknown one side. The known one we are putting it as here. For the unknown one, we are using a matrix to separate the unknown variables into one matrix and the known signals into the other matrix. And we have here in this case, the Y is the Q dot and U is the V. So what we are getting is U and Y. The previously it was y dot, but it is y here. That's the only difference. So from here we can say it is a first order system and this is a second order system. Yeah. I will wait for 1 minute. Please try to come up with any doubts if you have. Otherwise, we can always solve tomorrow morning. I'll wait for 1 minute. So take a good look at this and ask me if you have any doubts, please. This is very important. We have to understand what we are doing. It's not nothing big we are doing, but what we are doing is we are writing in a form that we are collecting all the variables. Even when you solve a static equations, you put all the known one side, all the unknown one side, and you kind of divide it to get the result, right? So we are doing the same thing here. So let me give small analogy so that we can understand if someone is having any doubt. For example, if you have 2x plus 3 is equal to 9x minus 5. So how do we find what is the value of x? We don't know x. So what we do as a first step in our solution to this, what we do, we put all the known one side, all the unknowns one side. So how do we do? Put all the terms with x one side. So what we say, the put 3 and bring 5 to the other side. So it goes like this, and we take the x, we can say 9x minus 2x. So this is something we know, right? And what we do is 9x minus 2x is 7x is equal to what is 3 plus 5? It is 8. So what is x is equal to 8 divided by 7. So we are getting value of x. So the idea is similar. The steps we are following here is very similar here. What we are doing here is we are writing, let me show this. What we are doing is writing all, in this case the z is the 8, the x in this case, x means something which we don't know. The x which we don't know is theta 5, theta time theta star. Theta star is something we don't know, so we are putting it next here. And this term 7 is always associated with this x. You can't remove it. So what we are doing is we are multiplying with, and this is 5. So this is like 7x in this equation, and the 8 is this one. So what we are doing is we are separating the elements, which we know one side, which we don't know other side. It's as simple as that. But the is called parametric model. We can't solve it like this, like how we did the static equation, because it's a dynamic equation and we can't just divide it to solve. So also these are matrices. These are not, we can't find inverse for this 1/2 matrices, right? So it's not, we can't find inverse directly. We have to use some other techniques to do it. But the what we are going to do is something very similar to this, what we are having. Okay. Please ask me if you have any doubts. We have only one more slides. It will be like explaining what we are going to do tomorrow. So if you understand this, it's like we understood most part of that. If you have no doubt, if you don't have any doubts, we can go to the next slide.
Why the unknown parameter? Hello, Suresh.
Yeah. Yes.
The unknown parameter is only multiplicable with some parameter, some constant. You're saying theta star into phi.
What is your question again? Why is that? I don't understand. Please.
You're multiplying, right? Z equal to theta star into phi. So
Yes.
like makes that relation between the theta star and phi only like why not some other?
No, whatever may be the one we are writing in this form. What I'm saying is whatever equation you have, you bring it to this form.
So it's not a physical multiplication, right? Theta star into phi.
No, it is a physical multiplication. If you see here, it's a matrix multiplication. If you see here, this is the actual differential equation, right? Let's say this is the differential equation. What we are doing is we're representing the same differential equation, but in this format, because we use this in the future. So what we are doing is the Q double dot, we are saying it is Z because it is not having any term. And this one, we are writing in the format of theta star times phi. So whatever we have here, we have to make sure the theta it contains all the unknown variables and phi contains all the known variables.
Yes. Okay.
Or known or able to measure. If it is a signal, we have to be able to measure it. So
relative.
Yeah, we have, these are the physical multiplications. So what I've shown is how to write them in matrix format. And Z and phi are something we know or we can able to measure. And theta is something we want to know, we don't know yet.
Yeah, kind of trans function model. Yeah.
Yeah, it is same like in this one. We have some model like this. And what we do when we solve, we put all the known ones one side, all the unknown ones one side, right? And we come up with this equation. From here, we proceed to solving. Until here, we always organize the things. We remove one side and we put other side and we try to make it as compact as possible. So what we are doing is, it's a formal way of writing it. So whatever differential equation you have to come up with this formal way and then we can proceed it. So what I'm saying, if you have a differential equation like this, we can't solve, we can't proceed it. We have to come to this stage. And from this stage, we can apply the techniques we know.
Okay.
So in this case, what is the technique? You just remove this coefficient and divide it by the other one, and we get the result. But in this case, what is the procedure? Is we are going to see in these 5 steps. These are the 5 steps we follow to get the unknown value. So how do we do? The first step is to write the parametric model. Okay, before I proceed, if you have any other, does anyone has any other doubts, please ask me. Okay, so let's start with this. So the first step is we have to write the given differential equation or the system in parametric model. So what we have is Z is equal to theta star times phi. So we have to keep remembering the alphabets here. The variables, because we're going to introduce more and more variables. And so let's not forget. And the theta star is the unknown variables or the ones which we want to know. All the unknown variables are theta star. Okay. And then what we have to do is, in the algorithm or anything, what we have to do is first we have to guess some values for theta star. So the identification process is not something like you get exact value by solving one's problem. As the simulation progresses or the time progresses, we get better and better approximation for the theta. So the theta star, we don't know, we will never know. what we will know is a better approximation for the theta star. That we have to understand that. We will never know what is theta star. We always know a better approximation for theta star. So what we will do, first you give some values. So if you have a new robot in your lab and you don't know, you can use these values 0.2 and 9.3 as your starting values for theta star. You say if someone's model is like this, so my model may be similar to this. You just give those values and you can start the work. So what happens next? And then in your program, in your simulation or in your lab setup, you have to build a system with the theta. So what you are doing is you come up with some values and you say you make a new system using theta. What is theta? Theta is estimate of unknown parameters theta star. So we have two terms, theta and theta star. Theta star is which is the real value, original value, which we don't know and we will never know. And what is theta? Theta is the estimate which we continuously update in our program. So we have theta and theta star. So what will be the new model? If you see the model we have here, this is the model we have. We never know what is this. So remove this, and what we know is an estimate for theta star, which is theta, right? So if you put theta here, what happens? We get some output Z for the input or the measurable things like phi. So what we get is an estimate of the real one. It's not the real one, because the real one, we don't have real values, so we won't get the real Z. What we get is one estimate. So we won't call it a Z, we call it Z cap. So we use Z cap. Z cap is an estimate to the actually measured Z. So we have Z, we said we can measure the Z, right? Also we have Z cap, which says this is the one which I have predicted. So you take some theta and say I predicted this value, but the system is giving some other value. So you have some error, you see? And that error we are going to calculate in the next step 4. We estimate the error epsilon. Epsilon is the error between your model and the actual real life model. So you always have an error because there is a possibility that you don't know exact your value. So you get some error. So you have an error. So the next step is the crucial step. So until now, all things work mechanically. So what you do, take some parameters, you by some random guess, you take some values and you make one system and you predict some value. And what you do is you see that the system is not behaving like what you have expected. It's having some error and you measure the difference, error difference, that we put as term, I mean the difference in the outputs, we call it as error or epsilon, and we measure it. The next one is we come up with an adaptive law. This is called adaptive law. What is an adaptive law? We come up with a law, or we can say some differential equation. It's always differential equation. And this differential equation, what does it do is it gives theta. Remember what is theta? Theta is estimate of theta star. The theta star is something real or something accurate or the real life system. And theta star is the real one and the theta is the estimate. So we are having theta here. And this is the equation. Let us think about the equation tomorrow. For now on, for today, let us say there is an equation like this. And you see if it is a differential equation. In this differential equation means it changes its value with the time. So with the time, this value, the theta star, the theta converges with the theta star. So as the time progresses much into the future, that value of theta, we mathematically prove that it converges with theta star. So what we have is we have some initial guess, but as the time goes on, we get the value very close to theta star. And how we get is by, we know in this equation what we are missing is the h. All other terms we have. We know epsilon, we have theta already, so we can get the theta star if we know h. H is the one are called algorithms. So if you have a prediction algorithm, what you are doing actually is you are coming up with a new h. So let us see tomorrow two algorithms. One algorithm let us see in little detail, not too much, a very little detail, which we can understand with our previous other knowledges. The other one is we can see very quick. Those are the two models we will see, and we'll see how they work in the simulations. We simulate them and see how they work. And let us change some parameters and we try to play with them and come up with see how the system the identification algorithm works and what changes we can do and other things. So what we have to understand is we know all the things except h. If you know the h, you can identify any parameters. If the h is very good, you identify good. If h is bad, you may not identify as good as it. And what you have to do, what is the purpose of h is the theta should converge with theta star. How quickly it converges is also it's good. Some in one algorithm we can see it converges very quickly, but it never reaches the exact point. There is another one small variation to that. It reaches very slowly, but with very after much in the future, it comes very close to the actual value. So we can observe all these things in the h by changing the h. So these are the 5 steps we are going to follow from tomorrow onwards for another for tomorrow and the next session to come up with identifying the parameters in a system. This is all I wanted to explain for today. Please ask me the doubts. First, if possible, tell me if anyone has already seen this. If not, we can. I will try to explain again if it's any doubt. Please, please tell me.
Professor Suresh.
Yes, sir.
How do we actually know the true value of theta star? Because we are actually training. Is it like some training? We conduct this already in laboratory to find, because how do we know the true value of theta star? Actually, we are in the process of estimating theta star, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
if you are in the process of estimating this theta star,
Mm-hmm.
we are comparing it with actually known value. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we should have some sample values of known theta star. So how do we get that known theta star values, true values of theta star?
No, we in the real life we will not have theta star, sir. In the real life, that's something we don't know. We need to know it. I mean, we want
so in the
to.
same,
Yes.
You mean to say that in the laboratory setup, we conduct some experiment, then determine theta star, and then the same theta star should be attained by our mathematical model. Is that what we do?
No.
Once we do it, the model is trained, and then we go for online implementation. Is that what we do?
No, in laboratory, what we do is, for example, we have an electric motor, and we can calculate the theta star by actual specifications of the motor. If you have motor, the motor, I mean, what we call the manufacturer data sheet gives us some values. With that values, we can estimate or we can calculate theta star, but we know that with time these values, the parameters changes, so we can't say that it is true right now. And also if the manufacturer is having 100 motors, not all the motors will have the same parameters. It is also an approximation. So
my doubt is,
yes.
Actually we are comparing this theta star, whatever we are getting at every step, or with some known value of theta star, right? Are we doing
in the algorithm? No, sir. We never use theta star in the algorithm. If you see, algorithm never uses theta star.
Then how do we get this error epsilon?
Epsilon is the error from the measured Z.
Okay, it is output error, right?
Output error. Yes.
Okay.
The difference between Z and the Z dash. Z.
Okay,
So
so
actually not just a difference. We use some. There are some techniques for measuring epsilon as well. So we don't just subtract Z from the Z estimated value. We do some
okay.
normalization so that the values won't be so big. So like dividing with some other factor. Yeah, but the epsilon is coming from the difference from the output we are seeing. Yes.
So even this case has to be done in the laboratory. So how do we know
Yeah.
that parameter, when the parameter is changing? So we try to change the parameters in the laboratory and then determine the output, because we should know the actual Z value, right?
Yeah,
So
we have
do we do this test in the laboratory for few samples? Like we try to change the parameters and then calculate the Z for different set, and then try to tune this algorithm. Do we do that in the?
yeah, we have to tune it, sir. We have to switch on the motor and we have to give certain signal as a voltage and we have to measure the Z and we have to keep measuring for certain sample size, I mean, like how you're saying. And with that measurements and what you're expecting, it should be an online, like online means we have to keep on, it's like a feedback loop. You measure it and we call it exciting the system. We excite the system to make the system move something and you observe from that and you get the value. For example, if we see the COVID right now, we already have some information for 3 months information. With this information, we can have some prediction. So we have more prediction models.
Okay, and
Like, yes.
parameter variations also have to be induced, and then output has to be known to us. Like those data samples should be we should have those data samples.
We should have the data samples, yes.
Then we will train our mathematical model as per those data samples to get the output, similar kind of output. Then our system will be trained, and this system will be implemented in the. So once it is predicting the laboratory values, that means that it will even predict the online values. That's how we import it, right? Is that what we do?
Yes, sir. We don't use the term training here because it is kind of training.
That goes to data.
Yes,
yeah.
For the neural network, some maybe.
Yeah.
But it's similar to that. We need some time before we get to the exact. We use the value to converge. We use the terminology converge. We need some time for the theta to converge with the theta star.
Oh. So that's what. So we have to do some. We should have some data set in our hand.
Yeah, we need
where the parameters were actually varied, where the parameters were actually varied, like COVID case, as you were saying. So COVID case, we have a data set where actually different cases, different parameter variations were there, and then the output is known. For example, some patient may require only 12 days of quarantine, some patient may require only 13 days, 14 days, something like that. We have the data set in our hand, and then we try to mathematically model, and then with this data set, we'll try to compare the outputs.
Yes,
once the outputs are,
yes. Yeah, one small correction. In this, the parameters are, we are not, parameters may change, but until now we are not talking about the change in parameters. What we change is the signals, input and outputs may change.
Okay.
The actual
so
parameters.
We don't. Okay.
Yeah, it can be applicable, but in the context you are saying, the parameters are like they're constant. For now, we can keep them constant. And even if the parameters are constant, we still need a data set to understand all the measurable things. In this case, the measurable things are Z and the phi. Only if we know Z and phi, we can calculate theta and we can estimate theta star.
So Z and phi, a particular value of Z and phi we take from the laboratory or some known data.
Yes, sir.
And the same excitation we apply for mathematical model.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And then we see that the output also should match with the model what we already have.
Yes, sir.
Until the output matches, we repeat the loop.
Yes, sir.
And when the output matches, we say that we have got the desired parameter value.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Okay. Okay.
So as the output keeps matching, we can see the epsilon is reducing. and we say that when it is very close enough, we can say that our estimate is very close to the real values.
So we do it for one set of input output, or we
Yeah.
do it for repeatedly number of inputs and number of outputs.
So, usually we in lab or anywhere, what we do is we collect as much as possible data, and we try to apply it to get more so that it can converge closely. But usually in 5 to 10 seconds, it converges for most of the control system problems. In 10 seconds are like that. So that was your question, how long it takes, right? Sir?
No, I think you are answering from the point of view of the converging loop, mathematical loop, right? Mathematical model loop.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yes. Now I'm asking, do we need to have multiple set of data values, or a single input excitation, single output excitation will be sufficient for this?
Okay.
So,
Yeah, this is it depends on the algorithm we are using. Mostly when we use this the H times this algorithm comes up with some kind of conditions. When we say when they guarantee that convergence, they say we need 1 mode or 2 modes or 3 modes. Like here the one you are saying different types of signals is like different sine waves, we call it. If you have only one sine wave, we call one mode. If you have two different sine waves together, it's a 2 mode signal, 3 mode signal. So some algorithms need more than 1 mode signal to identify properly. So with one sine wave, you may not identify all the parameters accurately. So they may need 2 or 3 sine waves together.
okay, just like static
and
dynamic.
Yes, it
static
depends.
And dynamic parameters.
Yes, it's more like it depends on the type of model as well. If it is linear system, non-linear system, and also if it is first order system or second order system, you may need more modes, not just one simple sine wave. You may need different sine waves, and so that you can have more and more accuracy. So we will see this as well in the next class. With one sine wave, it is not possible. So we add another sine wave and you get better result.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Yes. Thanks. If you have any other doubts, please ask me. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Can you please repeat it?
Sir, can we go back to that inverse dynamics, sir? I had some doubt over there.
I didn't hear properly. You say something like inverse dynamics?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's the question, sir?
Sir, inverse dynamics, as we said, when if the robot model is based on a distance to voltage or displacement to voltage, we had a model.
Yes.
Without taking any feedback, we are trying to synthesize the form of control inverse dynamics, right, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
What is the critically mean? A model, I understood its response to voltage and a physical model. How do we physically interpret that inverse dynamics, sir?
You think how the audio was not clear. What I understood is how do we implement this in the real life? That was your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, it's implementing inverse dynamics in the real life situation is something it's not recommended because we don't know the actual model, right? So it's almost impossible to implement like an open loop system like this. What I am showing here, this is like an ideal case. So it's like it will work only in the simulation. In the real life, however, what we can do is we can detect online the parameters and we can inject here and we can do, but again it will be like a feedback loop because you are measuring this output to estimate the value. So it's without feedback controlling is it's not recommended or not possible unless like how the Bleaks people has done this this Berkeley low extreme exoskeletons, how they did. They were saying that they know the model and it's exactly true and they're implementing it with positive feedback. In that way, someone is taking control. Someone wants to control my computer. Okay, no. Okay, so in the real life, it's not applicable, sir. It's only for the theoretical discussion. So it shows that if we implement, we get it, but in the real life, we won't implement. It's never in an open loop system. It's always a closed loop system. Yes.
Also, Suresh, can you suggest one successfully implemented, naturally imitated system? So, any such system you have come across during your research or study or work, so that we can say this is the best so far possible model.
The best possible. It's mostly electrical systems are better predicted than any other systems. So most of the electrical systems they are having very good what you call models and they are predicted properly. The mechanical systems to some extent, but there are a lot of other things like in the friction itself. We always talk about the viscous friction, but there are a lot of other frictions like Coulomb friction and also static friction. These all things, if you keep adding, it's very complicated to model and come up with a better model of a mechanical system. Most of the electrical systems I see, they are very good representation of the real life systems. For example, the power grids, they work, the models for the power grids are very, very accurate to my knowledge. I feel that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any physical models like we might have heard about the Sophia robot, right? Which imitates more or less like equal to the human expressions.
Yes. Yeah.
So can we say the model, the concept behind model such kind of robotics using this predictive what we are learning now?
Okay, for this we have to understand another concept like whatever we are seeing in this subject or in these classes are mathematical approach of control, mathematical approach, or we can say a systematic approach for the control systems. But with the advancement of computer, what we are having now is they call heuristic approach of solving problems. So they don't want to use mathematical systems much. They want to use some kind of other technologies because they have a lot of computational power now. So we have a lot of computation power. With why use mathematics if you can solve by some brute force? Like if your system is going unstable, why can't you detect it and stop it and do something else? So it's like using neural networks, using fuzzy logic. All these things come in these categories. They are not actually, we can't consider them as a classical control system because they use kind of heuristic things. Like they say what happens, they predict. If it fails, no problem. They can go with another thing. They can change it very quickly. The systems will change very quick. So these approaches are something different from what we are learning. So for example, the Sophia robot and all, they are like more like heuristic type of solutions they have. They use neural network, artificial intelligence and those things. They don't use classical PID controllers and nothing like that. They have, maybe the future is with the heuristics technologies, not with once we are learning. Maybe in the future we have to stop learning PID controller and apply neural network even for small problems. So that's how it's it's a shift we are facing now, because the previously they used to control, if you want to control a big machine, what you used to do is you have to tune with this knobs, right? You have some analog computers.
Yes.
We have a vacuum tube and those things. This we have to remember, these controls were developed when their computers were even not invented, like computers what we know. So there is no microchip or any small ICs in those time. What they did is mathematically they used to say it will be stable and they used to apply. But now the technology is advanced a lot and they don't care if the system goes unstable. If it goes unstable, they'll change the control strategy immediately and they'll make it stable. So there is a small difference between what Sophia is there and what we are learning. We are learning, we can say like old concepts.
So we are confined these concepts to hardly to industrial automation robotics, right? Which has multiple degrees of freedom.
Yeah, it's we can say this is a classical control systems. What we are doing, very old, or we can say for industries. Even some industries they are trying to change, but a lot of industries they don't want to change yet, because the heuristic system they can't guarantee mathematically that the system will be stable. With this, with the whatever we are learning, there is mathematical backup. We can say that when time goes infinity, theta is going to be equal to theta star. We can say with mathematical accuracy, with mathematical background. Whatever heuristic we have, they don't have mathematical background. So most of the industries, they don't trust it. So if they have a big power plant, they don't want to take risk by taking one adaptive control or one neural system based system.
Very true. Yeah.
They just put one PID controller and they are very satisfied. They don't want to change even to the adaptive control. They don't even want to use that, because the management is more in. It's like how the managerial decisions works.
Okay. Thank you, Suresh.
So if something is working, they don't want to interrupt how it works. Yeah. So yeah, that's so it's different. Yeah.
Thank you, Suresh. Participants, if you have any other questions related to today's session or previous session, you can ask queries.
Professor Suresh, I still have the doubt actually.
Yes, sir.
If the motor parameter is changing, because it is going to change with lifetime and with time, right? So
yes, sir.
For every change, there will be a different output coming out.
Yes, sir.
So do we need to put the system always with the actual system and train it always, or is it always placed with the system? Or is it going to predict the model once it is developed? It is going to predict because once the parameters are keep on changing. Because parameters are not constant, they will be changing with lifetime.
Yes.
If they are changing with lifetime, do we need to fix this model always? Because we need that actual output, that change in the parameter. Only then I think we can model our system. So how are we going to do it? Are we going to fix it with the system, or because we want to predict actually. So once we have the model developed, it should work independently. So how is this done?
Yeah, for this is the reason we say online. So when we have model already, we have a model, but what is missing is, for example, we have a model. For example, this is the model for a robot. We have it, it's good, but the values of A and B are keep changing all the time. So we can't, we can say we have model, but it is not accurate because of the parameters. We estimate today and tomorrow the values may change after a few days. So what we have to do is we have to continuously monitor, as you said, we have to continuously estimate the values of A and B. And we call it as online. We have to keep tracking of changes. And for that, when we see this algorithm, this H. There are some H which is like they use the values from the 0 times 0 until you run, but there are other algorithms which have forgetting factor, which is very important. What it does is, if you change parameters, if there is a change in parameters, after a certain time it forgets what was in the previous, and it will try to adapt itself to the new parameters. So we will see this one also in the tomorrow's one example. We make it run, and while it is running, let us change some parameters and see if our controller, if our if our identification algorithm is able to change it or not. By changing one factor which called as forget factor, if you put some forget factor, it will forget the previous parameter value and tries to reach the new parameter value. So we can use that in the tomorrow. We will see, sir, that one we continuously monitor. Once there is a change in parameter, it updates the value, and it should be always like you said, you should continuously monitor the parameters. It keeps changing and we have to monitor it all the time. Yes.
So it should always be tuned with the actual system, and then we can predict the value.
Yes, sir.
So
when system is running, for example, I was giving example of a power grid. We can collect the information all the time and we can model it. And more for the electrical machines and all, we say the changes are very little, so we neglect the changes. But if something is changing drastically, or if it affects our output, we can.
So time to time we have to collect data
online. We have to put one predict identification online, and we have to continuously monitor.
Okay. Okay. So thank you.
Was it clear, sir? I can explain.
Yeah, sir. Yeah. I think I understood. Yeah. Online. So the system has to be, the model has to be trained. The model has to be tuned online every time the parameter changes. Like
yes,
frequently, it has to be tuned, and then it can be used for prediction of the.
By selecting a good edge, by good algorithm, we can make sure that we always have the latest parameter. We will see in one of the simulations, we give some values, and we see it's it's reaching the parameters. It converges with theta star, but then we change the theta star, and we see if the new theta is, the new predictions are reaching to the theta star or not. If not, we try to change some parts of the H, and we see how it works. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes. So, any other doubt? You're saying something, Kalyan?
Yeah, that's what, like, I'm talking to participants. The participants, if you have any doubts, you can share your queries. If not, we can end the session for today. It's already 8:30 as per the schedule. Please do observe the chat box. You will be getting the records sessions of previous days as well as the materials. Every day we are uploading, so please download them. You can have a practice in your leisure time. So whenever you get any doubts, you can approach the resource person. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalyan.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you so much.
Good night, all of you.
Tomorrow, can you give a brief about the tomorrow session before we close?
Yeah. Tomorrow, what we are going to do is we are going to show. We're going to see two algorithms for the adaptive law, and with this we implement these algorithms, and we'll see how we can identify the parameters, and yes, like how the sir told, we can change some parameters theta star, and we see if the theta is converging or not, and if it works, that's what we are going to do tomorrow. And if everything we understand properly, the next day, the third day of the parameter identification, we can apply this to second order system, and we see it is as expected. So tomorrow we are going to see mostly the scalar part. We don't have matrices to solve, we have only scalar. But the third part of this this part, I mean the parametric identification, we will go with matrix and we see how we can use matrices and into the differential equation, how we solve it.
Okay.
So that's how we're going to proceed. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Good
all
night.
for the participation. Yeah, have a good day, Suresh. Good night all. Thank you.
Bye.